Hey guys, Andy Yen, spoken label, back in the house. Sunday afternoon. Yes, special podcast today as well, 'cause this is my last one before I take a break. August is spoken label 3 month. So we've got a special guest with us today. Oh, they're always special. But kudos to my friend Ruth O'Reilly for this podcast. And this lady, I met her, we were just talking about it, Caroline. Was it 2019 you headlined Verbose, or was it earlier?
I don't know. It was a while back though, wasn't it? Time
Yeah.
flies.
It flies,
Yeah.
definitely was, because we've got the fantastic Caroline England with us today. And I definitely remember Caroline, meeting Caroline when she co-headlined with Amanda, obviously the wife, the boss. And that was it's that bar, Fuel Bar in Withington. That's how,
Withington. Yeah.
yeah, see,
Yeah.
that's how far back we go. Now, you live up that way, Caroline, don't you? But I know you're not from there originally, are you?
No, no, I'm originally from Sheffield. I
Yeah,
came over the
you can hear it in
border
your
to,
accent.
yeah. Came over the border to, mind you, I'm more a Manc these days, because obviously I came over the border for university and stayed. So I've
Yeah,
been here more than, I'm more a Lancashire than a Yorkshire. Although
yeah.
you never get rid of your Yorkshire roots,
No,
but
you
yeah.
don't. You don't, because like if you talked to Amanda when we met you years ago, Amanda's originally from Bradford, but she actually
Right.
lived in Sheffield for about 8 years. She did. Then she came over to Manchester, and the poor girl met me. Then, so yeah, it's like your story basically. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I get you completely. That's great. So
And like you say, I live in Didsbury, so Withington's just up the road. So, and I tend to set my books sort of all around the South Manchester area. So, like, Chorlton and West Didsbury and Withington. And I go a bit into Cheshire and a bit into Derbyshire. So, like to keep them local.
I think it works. We're going to come on to this more in a minute, 'cause this was something I want
Yeah,
to talk to you
sure.
about. Because yeah, I do it myself. This because not my books I'm writing now. My first two novels were set in Chorlton, and the third one I'm starting by say is set in Guy Bridge, where I live now. So, well, listen, I'll come on to that another day, right? So, yeah. Now I know your background originally. You started off as a divorce lawyer, didn't you? And got the writing bug. What about 15 years ago? Was that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, you broke up a bit there.
Oh,
So
that's
about,
typical. Yeah, dodgy internet connections, Dan. Right. Yeah. Sorry, repeat myself and obviously, yeah, for yourself. I know you were a divorce lawyer, weren't you? And the writing book grabbed you about 15 years ago. Is that correct?
yeah, yeah. So, I was a solicitor in Manchester, and I did some criminal work when I was training, and then I specialised in divorce. Don't know why, because that's quite a traumatic thing in a way. But anyway, yeah. Then I did that for a few years, and then I did a different area of the law, and then I sort of became a stay-at-home mum for a while to bring up my girls. And at that stage, the writing bug really hit, and I took it more seriously and started doing my short stories and my novels, etc. So yeah, yeah, it's but you'll know once it hits, it grabs you by the
Yeah.
throat, doesn't it? It doesn't
By the
let
throat,
go.
literally, yeah, it does. It grabbed me because we're in my late 30s. And it was like, I've been writing all my life. And I presume you'd been the same, hadn't you? Did you do much writing before the bug hit you, or was it all just grabbed you
Well,
all at once?
yeah, I don't think I was good at English at school and that type of thing, but I think in the law you're writing because it's part of the job. You're doing like divorce petitions, you're doing pleas of mitigation, so you're doing it as part of your job. But I think I was always writing in my head. That's a form of writing, isn't it? I was storytelling, creating stories. So I think I was always doing it there. And it's only sort of a bit later that I started putting pen to paper, so to speak, and actually writing them down. But they're always up here.
Yeah, I think it's nature of the beast when you're doing the sort of work you're doing. Because I've not told my day job, as I'll tell you about it when we're on break later. But you relate to it, believe me, with that one. Yeah, it leads you into some things like that by accident. I think sometimes, no, it definitely does with that. And it's like I think it's a great fit for where you are as a writer. And what I found interesting, first of all, was we'll go straight into what caught my eye with this was I know you write under two different names, don't you? Obviously, Caroline
Yeah.
England, which we're going to talk about your latest novel in a few moments, but also your C.E. Rose books as well, which is much more the Gothic side. So, have you always had interest in the Gothic sort of writing as well?
Yeah, I think so. That they're still sort of similar insofar as their
Mm,
psychological, their mysteries, suspenseful, crime fiction again on the psychological end. But they do have that hint of a gothic, like Daphne du Maurier, like Rebecca and My Cousin Rachel,
yeah.
and just I think the setting is sometimes like a character in itself. And I think that gives it a gothic vibe. But I think my Caroline England books as well have increasingly the gothic guy side to it. I think as again partly because of the building it might be in or the setting, and I'm really quite intrigued about old things at the moment, as you'll know when we talk about the
No,
book.
yeah, we'll definitely with that. We'll come on to it in a moment. Yeah, I got that. You obviously told us a few minutes ago. Settings are an important thing in your book. Like it's on your current book, obviously, The Return of Frankie Whittle. Settings, I think the setting in this is probably more as important as Frankie, the character itself. And it's like, because it's
Yeah.
set near where you live in Disbury. Now, that is supposed to nothing else. I've read other bits you said that you go and do your research when you're looking at areas for books. At least in this one, you can go and get a coffee, can't you? Dear, where you sat and just sat
Yeah,
there
yeah,
scribbling.
definitely. And go and walk around and think, oh yeah, yeah, definitely. It's good
Yeah,
to get that inspiration, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
And the
no,
authenticity, I think, I feel that because you're saying you do the same thing.
yeah,
I
I do.
think what you know gives it that realism and authenticity, doesn't it? That
Yeah,
perhaps if you're trying to imagine somewhere, it's not quite the same.
yeah. I've read books before by writers, and you know the same yourself. Where you can tell within 15 pages that they don't have a clue about the area they're writing, and they just jumped straight in, made themselves look complete twits. But that's what got me. This, but this is what got me with this book straight away. Excluding obviously the characters we're coming to next. Settings are vital in this book because it gives it that mood. And was that the plan with this book from the beginning, always to look at the settings the way it was?
I think so. I actually went to there's an actual gate, the old workhouse. I mean that's the basic setting, isn't it? It's the
Yeah.
Victorian workhouse, and it was actually called the Chorlton Workhouse apparently back in the day because
Oh,
Chorlton must have extended to West Didsbury. So I went with my daughter to the actual setting in the book. I've obviously fictionalized it, but there is an actual gated community that has risen out of that old workhouse. And we had a little look round it, and she was looking at a house, and it just gave me vibes. As soon as I was in there, because it has, even though it's all beautifully modernized, gorgeous buildings, they're all the old buildings, they've all been polished up to look lovely. So the old chapel, the old workhouse buildings and offices. And I just knew there was a story in that. And I was me, I sort of got, it was all immaculate as well. So I got those Stepford Wives vibes.
yeah,
Uh,
you do get that with this book. He's got that sort. That's what got me right. It's the gothic side of it.
yes,
Just sneak. I think he so subtly sneaks in this book.
yeah. I think it's because nothing is quite what it seems, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And it's like the old expression, isn't it? If it seems too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true, that type of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
But I did, but then I obviously did a lot more research about the workhouse days, and it is really, really fascinating, and not actually that long ago. Where people were inmates, they were, the poor and destitute, they were segregated. When they died, they were put in communal graves. They were barely fed; they had to work, for their pittance. So fascinating.
Sad, but sad really as well. So I know what you mean.
Very,
It's too
very
true. When you're looking back at those days like that, it isn't that long ago. Because you think last one, the obvious one likes Peterloo and stuff like that. People literally got starved to death, didn't they? And it's only a
yeah,
couple hundred years ago.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. So it's I said it's obviously when you walked in there, and I've this myself as bits and pieces before now. You know sometimes straight away it's a book that's calling to you. So obviously then you wouldn't have known at the time then obviously with the book itself what it was going to be. But obviously then tell us about Frankie then as a character. The people that don't know who Frankie Whittle is.
Yeah, well, obviously Frankie Whittle is a girl. It's not a boy, Frankie, and she comes from West Didsbury, but she's gone to the bright lights of London. She's met Toby. Life is good. They're married. She's pregnant with her first baby. Then she lives in Fulham. Then in one terrifying night, everything goes wrong and her life changes. And she does what a lot of us do when life goes awry, is we go home to mum. So she did. She comes back home to Manchester and decides she wants to leave London behind, and she wants to bring Toby with her and start a new life and find a new home in Manchester. And she finds a gated community, and it turns out this gated community was the very place she was born, and it feels like serendipity. So that's where the story starts.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a great setup itself. Was it always in mind? I'm conscious of spoilers of this book, obviously.
Yeah,
So it came out a
yeah.
couple of months ago. But obviously, like, there is quite a major traumatic event. And I'm not saying what people read the book, but was this traumatic event always going to start the book off when you look back at it now?
Well, it's always difficult because I'm not a plotter. I don't know about you, but I'm a
I'm s-
pantser.
I'm a sketcher. To be honest, if that makes sense.
um, so I don't really. I have a few ideas, and the ideas might not even be connected to begin. Something that intrigues me, or something I read,
Mm.
or like I
Mm.
say, I'm visiting a house, an area that gives me the vibes. So then I set off writing the story with these few ideas in mind, and then it just sort of takes off. So
Yeah.
I can't answer that question because I don't sort of plan it out ahead too
Yeah.
much. I think as I'm going along, I'm thinking, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll do that and I'll do this.
Yeah.
But it's a tricky one to answer that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same boat myself, to be honest. Like I'm a sketcher. I'm always sketching away with little ideas and stuff. And if you ever get a chance to chat to Amanda, obviously she's a novelist as well, and she's exactly the same as you. I know she's 16,000 words into her next novel at the moment,
Wow.
and I don't.
Yeah.
And she might tell me off for this one. But I've got the feeling she doesn't know where it's going yet, so she's just going with the flow. So, but yeah, and
Yeah.
I understand that completely. And obviously on your novel itself, obviously the trauma, which we're going to talk about, obviously is a key development in the story, playing around with this element of domestic bliss. And that's a really good contrast. And do you look back at the book now and think to yourself, it works really well, doesn't it? 'Cause you start her off on one part of her life and it just completely changes, doesn't it? And it needs that trauma, I think.
Yes, yeah, I think it does. It needs, I suppose, an impetus, doesn't it? A catalyst for all these stories to make things change. Because I think change and conflict is what it's all about. People, that's what you need in writing, isn't it?
Yeah,
And to
definitely.
keep the intrigue and keep the pace going. Yeah, so definitely we had to get Frankie back to Manchester.
Yeah.
For
Why did you?
various reasons, as what if anyone reads the book, and there's all sorts of reasons why, aren't there, that Frankie herself has no idea about.
Yes. I loved the beginning of the book itself when obviously, and the book first started off, I thought of, oh, we've got various viewpoints coming in this book, and obviously the other one being a mum. But tell us about then what was the decision then to actually have various viewpoints in the first part of the book?
Yeah, so the whole book only has two viewpoints, either
Hmm.
Frankie or her mum's. But I sort of mess around with it a bit, don't I? So the first part one is both of them, and then another part is just one of them, and another part is just one of them. So I thought it was really interesting to see the different view of a mother and a daughter, and sometimes almost seeing the same situation, but how different people see it differently, but also their story. So you in the present day, you're following Frankie's story, but then we go back in time and we're following Nina, her mum's story. And obviously the two interlock and affect each other. So, and I do sometimes I write from various points of view. For example, my debut, Beneath the Skin, probably had about 8 points of view. Then my
Wow.
husband's
Wow.
followed. No, then that had, and it's not as fashionable now, but
Hmm.
then my husband's Lies, which was my sort of one and only bestseller,
Hmm.
that had 4 points of view. But then other books have been just complete the whole book
Hmm.
just from one point of view. So I sort of mix it up. But I think sometimes to tell the story, having more than one point of view is easier as a writer. I don't know if you find that.
Yeah, definitely with that. Well, the current book at the minute has got 20 points of view on it just to
Oh,
really
right.
confuse
Wow.
you.
That is a
But
lot.
but all it is, man, is it's 20 short stories. all
Right.
interlinked by area. And some of the people cross over on the last story. So, but yeah, that's cheating.
No, no, but it's interesting. I really like that. I like that premise. That sounds great.
I'll tell you what about later, as I said. But yeah, I know. But yeah, obviously, with the book itself, and obviously, I really liked the way you paced this book out. Now, I've read obviously one of your earlier books, Betray Her, which I really did enjoy as well, last year actually. And I know that had 60 odd chapters. This one's got even more, over 80, which is like, I think doing a book like that, this gives it a real quick pace because the chapters are very short. Is this something that you were conscious on when this book was developing?
I think, yeah, I think it's not a deliberate decision, but I find myself increasingly doing it. And in fact, I did a talk at a library the other day, and someone in the audience went, "Oh, what's all this with these short chapters? I can't be done with short chapters." But I think readers are increasingly, because we've got TikTok, haven't we? We've got
Yeah,
Instagram, we've got videos and YouTube, and everything's fast and pacey. And I think maybe in general, I know you can turn the corner of the page down and go to sleep and go back to it in the morning. But I myself, when I'm reading now, prefer shorter not really, really short, but shorter chapters. And then you can carry on if you want to, you don't have to. But I do, yeah, think it suits that type of book.
yeah,
Um,
definite with
yeah,
that. So,
yeah, because I write psychological suspense, that tends to be a sort of slower burn than some things anyway. So it's trying to mix the slower burn plus shorter chapters up, if you know what I mean. So to
yeah, I
get a
do.
happy balance.
Yeah, it worked really well for me, this book, and I agree because of the pacing of it. Because I thought the short chapters give me the real edge. I'm thinking, oh, that's a good ending. What next? What next?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
no, it does. It works really, really well with it straight away with it. So, did you find? And I'm conscious. I'm trying to use the word spoilers here, but because obviously I don't want to give too much away with a fairly new book still. Did any of the book really change from when you started writing it? Really?
In what way do you mean?
Like, it's obviously like characters, for example. So obviously, like it was, did Frankie, did she arrive with you, say, fully formed? Or
Oh,
was
I
there any?
see what you
Yeah,
mean.
I'm
Yeah,
looking at
yeah.
characters, so I
No,
may
I
badly
think,
wording.
yeah. No, again, I think if you're a pantser, and maybe in any event, when you're writing your characters, you're getting to know them more and more, your own characters, aren't you?
Yeah,
Um, I think they do. People say, oh, do they land fully formed to begin with? They do in a way, but you're just getting to know them more deeply and more deeply. And of course, sometimes your characters do something without your permission.
yeah,
They go off on a little jaunt of their own, and you're thinking, all right, then let's see what happens here. And and she's quite a headstrong character, and I think some people are like, oh, for goodness sake. But obviously, you need a bit of a headstrong character because you need to propel that story, and you need sometimes your character to make a few mistakes
yeah,
to bring in the tension and
yeah.
also to make them human because we're all, but we all get things wrong, don't we? And
I think book characters have got to make mistakes, and that moves the book along. And it was
yeah,
like, I could see the similarities to, and obviously, Frankie and her mum Nina in this book, two very
yeah,
headstrong women. And
yeah,
certainly, that when the book develops, you see they've both got secrets. Some
yeah,
some in the past, some in the present. I think that's a good way of putting it there. So
yeah, yeah,
straight away with that. So
definitely. Yeah.
how did this book compare to some of your earlier books then? Like, so I've read Betray Her and I thought Betray Her was fantastic. It really was a good book, that. But I felt it was quite different to this book, probably because I think it was 7 years ago, that book.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've probably some people call my books domestic noir, and because they're very domestic based and the relationship based. So I think this one is less domestic based as such, I think. And it's a bit more, maybe a little bit more thrillerish. Because, it's hard, as you say, not to give spoilers. But I think yeah, maybe Betray Her, for example, that was sort of almost like a love triangle, wasn't it? It's
Yeah,
sort of like, and sort of, but all my books do have a romance in them as well. I think I'm secretly want to have a romance, but I go to the dark side. So I
yeah,
always have the relationships and the relationships between, relationships between, parent and child, but friendships and love and romance as well, all mixed up in the pot. But maybe this one's just a little less sort of, I suppose, relationship based per se, if you know what I mean. It's more,
Yeah.
maybe I've gone more for the setting with this one.
Yeah, does.
But they have, I think I've got increasing like that because the one before Frankie, called The Stranger Beside Me, that's partly set in Whalley Range. And there are again very dark secrets in one of those gorgeous old, Victorian terrace houses. So again, it's that the setting is taking a large part as well.
Yeah,
Whereas
no,
maybe say Betray Her, maybe the setting itself was less.
yeah, no, I get you completely. I think as a writer, I'm some curious of your opinion on this. Every book you do is a reaction to your previous book. I'm always their opinion on because, like, whenever I complete a book, the next one I go on to it is moving it, not as a move a different direction. It's a reaction to where that book went.
Yeah, well, I tried to do that and I tried to mix it up. It's like, when you do a short story collection, you're trying to make every story really different. But because when I got the writing bug all those years ago, and I was doing first drafts of novels sort of without even telling anybody, I was in the
Oh
novel club.
wow!
I know. I just felt at the time, you feel you've got to be someone special to write a novel, but of course we can all do it. And so I didn't tell anyone. So I had a back catalogue, and I've still got a bit of a back catalogue. So they haven't, as they've been published, Frankie Whittle, the latest one, that's book 13. Unlucky for some, let's hope not. Um, but they haven't come necessarily in the order I've written them. So
Ah,
I think, like you say, theoretically, you're trying to
hmm.
do something different next one, but as they've been published, they haven't necessarily been in the order I've written them.
Ah,
So
yeah, that's a different ball game altogether. And you're doing that
yeah,
then. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah, no, I
yeah.
understand you completely. That's fair enough then. So obviously, with this book, obviously, this does feel like a sort of book, and I'm careful what we're saying here. This is a one-off book, but could you see more books being done at the Pavilion, possibly, even if not Frankie's story, book two?
Yeah, I guess there's always scope for I mean I write standalone. In fact, I did do two books in a series that I took my rights back because it just didn't sell them. And they were a Didsbury set feisty feminist solicitor. And I'd like to go back to those, but they're the only ones I've done like a series, and there are only two in the series. So mine are all standalone. But I do think every book you write does have a potential of pulling a thread out of it or pulling the same character out of it. And I think that in psychological suspense, a couple of authors have been doing that, haven't they? Like, for example, Lisa Jewell did a sequel to, I think it was The Family Upstairs. Then she's done, and I think it was just by public demand, people going, "Oh, it's such a good story. We want to know more." So I suppose there's always potential to take stories further.
Yeah,
I think everything, like, for example, My Husband's Lies, a lot of people go, "Oh, write more." I want to know what happens next.
yeah,
Um, Especially if there's a little bit of a cliffhanger, because I generally answer everyone's questions because it frustrates the reader if you don't. But sometimes there's things I'll leave, and giving the reader food for thought. But I think some people are like, "Oh, I want to know. I want to know what happened next." So
yeah. That
yeah,
I can relate to that. I know the case of Amanda, like, well, her last book when it came out a couple months ago, she's got the sequel in mind at the moment where she's pulled out a minor character from that book and give them their own legs and stuff to run. So, but yeah, you're right. I think sometimes things surprise you. I think with novel writing completely. So that's why. But yeah, in your case, and in this case, when did you know the book was done? Then was it quite a quick process this book when you got to it? Then
yeah, I think it was actually, and it's really weird that I just the story just sort of ends when I'm writing it at I'm probably around 80,000. It used to be about 100,000 words, and I've gone a little bit shorter. And the story just seems to end. It's really, whereas some people, a writer was telling me the other day, they just keep a word, they make sure they're watching the word count, and when they get to the word count, that's where. Whereas for me, it just generically seems to happen. I don't know why. Yeah, I think you can always sort of. I think maybe I've got a short attention span. I think once my story's ended, I want it to end. That's it. Whereas I suppose these people like Ian Rankin who've written like how many Rebus books. I
Yeah.
don't know how they do that really, because you're having to sustain your character's life as well as the new storylines, aren't you? And I
Yeah,
don't know.
it does. It's like the Rebus books are great examples, really. Or, well, I read one called The Nowhere Man by Greg Hudson. He's about ex-government assassin sort of thing, and that's on its, I think, 11th book next year. And you think to yourself, like, how do you keep doing another book in that series? Do another one, do another one. And
Yeah.
it's like they're all standalone books, I think, with tiny little threads and stuff. But you're right, it's I don't know people do it.
Yeah,
Generally
no,
don't.
me neither. No, I like doing my standalones. I like to, and I like the feeling of sort of closure in a way once it's done. Whereas I suppose if you write series, your mind must always be buzzy, buzzy. But what next? What next? What next? Whereas I like to come up with something completely fresh and new.
Yeah,
So
no, yeah, and of course, I think it works in your favor. I think because it's fresh and new, like people know. Then sometimes thinking it's not. I think it's the investment, isn't it? If you get into a series and you know yourself from reading them, like you get into a series and there's 12 books there, you think, oh, good grief, do I? Do I?
I know it's a bit like TV. So, it's like my one of my daughters keep going, you've got to watch Dexter. Dexter, it's so good. But it's
Oh,
like however many series, I think, oh, have I got enough hours left in my life to watch it
oh,
all?
same here. Amanda's mad on Dexter, and she watched the
Oh,
original eight
right.
seasons of it. Got me on the sequel series a couple of years ago. I didn't have a clue what was going on. I still don't now. I've got another spin-off series started, but they've been reasonable to get into. But you're
Yeah,
right. Sometimes you get eight series or something. You're
yeah,
thinking,
it's a lot, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Her favourite one is Supernatural, and she got me to watch a lot. All 15 seasons of it from
Oh,
beginning
wow.
to
Yeah.
end. Yeah, so yeah, but yeah, I think it's the way it goes with things like that. It's what direction you want to go next. I think you're writing for yourself still. But obviously, a couple of quick start wrapping up here anyway. But I know obviously you will have another book on the go at the moment. And I don't know whether it's with a publisher yet or even if they've seen it. So we'll be careful what we say here. But I presume there's another book on the go for you, possibly
Yeah,
two
I've
even.
got another book. Yeah, I've got another book that's due to be out, if all goes to plan, on the 20th of November.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, yeah. So this year, and it's another psychological suspense, and this one is set in Altrincham. So I'm still sort of local, but I've just gone to Altrincham and Manchester city centre. And yeah, it's the working title is The Baby Bones, but I don't know whether that'll end up being the actual title. So,
Yeah.
and it's another one of, life not being exactly what it seems, emerging secrets, all those sort of things, and related, a bit of a romance in there as well. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to that, and I'm actually working on it at the moment. This morning I was,
Oh, wow.
working on it. So
Oh wow! So it's not like a book that's been, should we say, hidden for a while. Then it really is a fresh manuscript. Then, so
yeah,
how
yeah.
long is
Well,
it?
I'm doing an edit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, how long is it? How many edits do you normally do in your books, and you normally get them to get to that stage?
Well, I think the more experience you get, the
Mm.
more you just get used to, making it as polished as you can to begin with. But of course, you go back to them and back to them. And then obviously when they get to the publisher and they do an edit, then they see it with fresh eyes, etc. So, I mean, you can sometimes get to the point where you're like, I'm sick to death of this book now, just because I've looked at it and, the words start to swim a bit. But yeah.
Well, it took me, would you believe, my first novel, 15 years to write it. 'Cause
Oh,
I couldn't
brilliant.
get it, I couldn't get it right. And it was crazy sometimes. It goes that way, doesn't it? Like, when you're looking back at them until you learn how to do it, the process. I remember that. It took me
Yeah.
about 14 drafts it did. I dropped the crackers.
Wow.
And then the second book,
But you got there. You
yeah, I
got
got
there.
them. And the second book took 13 years, but that's because I wrote, they were two books in the same universe. So I had to map both out. But
Right.
we start the next one, which I told you about off mic already. I'll tell you more in a minute. That's been done in a couple of months because it's flowed really quickly. It's been
Right.
easy, been
Yeah.
easier.
Maybe
So
you've just oiled those
yeah,
wheels now and it's, yeah.
I think it's the way it goes sometimes with that. But yeah, so no, good luck with it. Definitely, your books, Caroline. Definitely with that. Now, obviously, is there any readings coming up you want people to be aware of? Anything you want people to be aware of?
Um, I'm just trying to think. I'm at Bramall Library on Monday evening.
Well, this podcast will be out after that,
Oh,
unfortunately.
right. Okay. Well, that's fine. I'm trying to think what else is coming up. I think it's because once you've got your head in a book and an edit, you don't know what's happening in
Yeah.
life. I'm sure there is stuff coming up, but I'm always on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So if anyone was interested, they could, look me up.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
best way.
Yeah, and you've got your website as well, of course, haven't you, as
Yes,
well? So which is
yes.
very informative, certainly. Lastly, where can people get hold of your books?
Well, obviously, Amazon's the main place. All my books are available, both ebooks, audiobooks, paperbacks. They're all available on Amazon, and also in some local bookshops. So Chorlton Bookshop shop has some of my things. Morton's in Didsbury, other local bookshops do. And if ever anyone fancies reading one and they don't have them in a bookshop, they can just order them, and the bookshop gets them in. So it's really good. And occasionally you even see a secondhand one in an Oxfam. I always like that when I go in and go, oh,
Oh,
right.
yeah. I remember the first time that happened to me years ago, my first poetry book, because I'm an ex-poet, really. And stopped to this local charity shop and thought, wow, my book's in here. Charity shop, I'm a millionaire now.
Yeah,
Not the
that's it.
books.
Yeah, that's it.
You, you do, it's brilliant. You say that, oh God, completely. So brilliant. Anyway, this is Caroline. We'll wrap up here on part one. Everyone's wondering if Caroline's going to do a bit of reading for us in part two. So thank you again, Caroline. It's been a pleasure today. Really enjoyed this.
Oh, cheers. Thanks, Andy.
Okay, folks, we'll see you all in two shakes on the dice.